It's day 5 and today we're going to talk about resumes. Now unfortunately, I didn't have time to edit my personal resume and redact all my personal information from it, but I do want to talk about the way you should lay out your resume, formatting, language I used, you can see the types of jobs I was in and how I kind of created my narrative to apply to my graduate programs. So first, you need to think through the intent of your resume. The intent of your resume is to showcase your accomplishments and your journey up until applying to grad school. Just like the essays that you will have to write in terms of your personal statement or statement of interest, your resume also needs to tell a story of who you are, where you've been, and where you're trying to go. Many people forget that your resume needs to have some sort of narrative associated with it as well. For example, when you think about a LinkedIn profile, right? It has its headliner, like strategist, Forbes 40 under 40, and loves dogs or something like that, right? Your resume needs to convey a similar message. They need to be able to think, okay, this person's if you're thinking about urban planning programs, this person is a housing justice advocate. They were a real estate developer and they care about climate policy impacting housing development. The reason this is important is because they need to be able to understand not just through your essays, but also through your resume that you can fit into the ecosystem that is the grad program you're applying to. Fit in, I mean they're looking at the caliber of your work. They're looking at what did you accomplish? Can you accomplish things? Can you commit and follow through on things, right? Because if you have a bunch of little small pieces of work that don't add up to anything substantial, they'll question it. And maybe these were fellowships or internships, which can be designated as so, but if they're part-time jobs and it doesn't look like you're moving in an intentional way, that can question not only your character, but also your professional development. People don't realize that grad school, a lot of it is networking. And unless you're trying to go the PhD route, which that's probably 1% of grad school applicants. So unless you're trying to go that route, a lot of it is networking. That being said, your resume needs to convey to a reviewer, hey, this is who I am right here, right now. This is what I've accomplished. This is why I'm making this career shift. On your resume, you should be adding anything that you would be able to defensively qualify as experience, right? So if you did an internship and you were able to accomplish something and you feel it was worthwhile and impacted your journey, or you speak about it in your essays, or in some way it's influenced why you're here now, put it on your resume. Fellowships, put it on your resume. Work experience, put it on your resume. I don't believe there's any job too unqualified to add to your resume. It's more so about whether it was impactful for you in your career journey. I only went back to the beginning of my college experience in terms of work experience that I added, and that is because I did a lot of internships in undergrad. I'm talking at least one every summer and then a couple throughout the school year, or I worked part-time. So my resume had a lot of internship opportunities that were kind of in the same space, so I was able to lump some of them together. But essentially, that's how I ended up framing timeline for where as far as I went back. And just for reference, I only worked 1 year out of college before going to grad school, so I was applying to grad school in my first year of work experience out of undergrad, but that was still part of my application. So most of my stuff was either fellowships or internships on my resume. But what I am saying is when it comes to your resume, you're really trying to create a brand for yourself. Who do you want to be branded as when you're walking into this grad program? Who do you want to be branded as when a reviewer is comparing you to someone with similar experience, but your message is stronger? What do you want your message to be? I know a lot of people don't hold a lot of stock in putting together a well-crafted resume, but it actually is so important because it outlines to reviewers the type of work you were interested in, and they see if it matches up and aligns with your essays. For example, if you were the entire time from undergrad, you were an economics major, you went into investment banking, it was for like big oil, and then now you want to pursue a master's in public health focused on like air pollution in communities impacted by like oil refineries, right? You need to make that connection distinct, and you need to make it apparent that you're making a transition to like good work or like advocacy work, and through that, how your resume speaks to that essay you're gonna compose, right? And in addition to that, I also want to make sure that when you're thinking about your resume, you're also thinking about the layout, because formatting is super important. And I'll get into this a bit more once I actually redact mine and show y'all, because I think it's important visually for my visual learners. But the way I set mine up, just for reference, is I put my education at the top, and I did actually include my high school. The reason I included my high school is because I talked about growing up in LA. I'm from LA. So I talked about growing up in LA and basically my experience with environmental justice, how it shaped my experience with the built environment, and why I was interested in urban planning as a field, which you'll hear in a subsequent video once I like read out loud my essays that I wrote. That being said, it's important for me to like have that linear timeline, right, for a reviewer. Like, oh, she grew up in LA, she went to college in Chicago, now she's in Houston living her best life, because I was. And that in and of itself would help create a synergy between both my resume and my essays that I wrote. After education, I actually went into my work experience. That was like obviously most recent to like oldest, which was beginning of college again. And after that, I did skills, publications, accomplishments, scholarships I was awarded as well. All of that stuff was super important for me to highlight, because it showed that I was multifaceted. And also that there was more experience that I had to bring to the table than just my 1 year out of undergrad. The reason I mention this is because the director for the urban planning program at Harvard had explicitly told students in my program that they didn't want to admit people who hadn't had a few years of work experience prior to grad school, because they basically would be lost and have nothing to offer in a classroom setting. So it's really important to make sure you flush out all of your experiences that have been impactful and can shape a conversation in a classroom. The last thing any grad program wants is to have the same cookie cutter mindset and the same cookie cutter experience in a classroom, where you're supposed to be learning, pushing each other to like grow and expand your growth mindset, and also push you to just be a better human being and be someone who is impacted positively by their academic experience at whatever grad school you're at. That's all I have for y'all today, so feel free to leave any questions or comments in the section below, and if not, I will see you tomorrow for day 6. Bye.